All right. Hey guys, welcome back. A few quick announcements about the conference coming up in May. The venue is actually sold out as far as the lodging and cabins go. Obviously, there's hotels, Airbnbs, glamping, all nearby. For glamping, for those who don't know, is what is that, like glamorous camping? It's like half camping, half not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all that is
It's basically not even camping.
right. Yeah, it's like an Airbnb, but all of that is available nearby. There's still plenty of places surrounding it. The venue. The conference itself is not sold out, so if you're still planning on attending, there are tickets available at secretspaceconference.info, and live stream tickets are available there also for those of you who can't make it. And we started a Telegram group, Secret Space Conference Connections, it's for people wanting to share rooms or and accommodations, travel. If maybe somebody's looking for a roommate to make it cheaper, we have that Telegram group set up. And that link is below also if you guys want to check that out. Today we are joined by Penny Bradley. This is an interview I've been looking forward to for a long time. She is an SSP experiencer with an incredible testimony, and I'm really looking forward to getting into some stuff with her. I've watched plenty of her videos by now, and it's just mind-blowing stuff. And there's going to be no shortage of things to talk about, especially what's going on in the world right now. It seems this topic's becoming more and more relevant. And to me, it's absolutely fascinating. As you guys know, we cover this subject a lot, how we're doing a whole conference on it. So welcome to the show, Penny.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, thank you for coming, and thank you for doing this with us. For our audience who doesn't know who you are or who may be unaware of your story, would you mind giving a brief background on how you found yourself remembering that you were involved in these programs and what that actually looked like?
Okay, I've had weirdnesses and anomalies all along. But in 2013, I had a trip to Baltimore, York, Pennsylvania, DC, and I was escorted by an NSA agent. And during the course of this 10-day period, he used my remember code on me from my initial mind fracture. And over the course of the next few months, I had this like massive lump of memories just dumped in my lap. And I had a lot of programming suddenly dissolved. So I had been extremely Christian before. And that was
relate to that.
that was flipped off instantly. I remembered having faith. I remembered all the stuff I had studied. I just didn't believe it anymore. And
like in an instant, just like that.
Like in an instant, yeah.
Wow.
And I was suddenly lucid 24/7. I only actually sleep when I take something like Benadryl that knocks me out. And that's ongoing. What else did I have? Okay.
Well, real quick.
The memories were all in German. So it took me a while to figure out what it was I was remembering. That's why my memories were activated in 2013, but I didn't go public until 2016. I had to figure out what was it I was remembering. So I've gone, a lot of these guys will talk about that they have kept their testimony pure. I did not have that luxury because, I was having these memories of being in a room as a child and having raptors straight out of Jurassic Park coming through the wall. And I could smell and taste the blood. So I knew it was a memory, not a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And that could not possibly have happened in California where I grew up.
Well, there's been a lot of experiences with raptor beings, Captain Richards, for one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the one that hit me the hardest, and I give him full credit, Michael Ralph, his work really helped me nail down where it was that I experienced this. And so I've gone through all of the old time speakers, all of the literature. So I can tell you who else experienced this, if that's what you're into. My memories are, I was kidnapped at age 4 from my bed in Tulare County, California. I was put into a Jeep with military folks in green fatigues. And we drove at night cross country from California to Langley, Virginia, where I was a guest of an agency for the next 5 years. That was mine fracture. That was training of alters. That was a 6-month side trip to Montauk's time tunnel. I was everything that you would see and expect from Stranger Things was what they were doing there. Now, initially, I thought that was a CIA base, but the CIA headquarters was built after I got there. And there was a CIA archivist who came forward saying she had uploaded my file to the archive and that everything that I remembered was in the file. There were things that I didn't remember, but that everything I did remember was in there. And she was on my show again last Saturday. So she's this really sweet 80-something-year-old woman who has put herself at risk to verify my testimony.
Wow.
In fact, the day I was in for my surgery, December 7th, her house burnt down.
Oh, no.
So,
Wow.
So when I talk about people are at risk, I'm not talking about, they're going to have trouble with their internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More serious.
So I'm talking about serious stuff. So Doris's house burnt down. The agent who activated my memory was killed in the hospital. His boss was hit with an ice bullet and ended up dying later from, they called it a stroke. It took him 6 months to die, which wiped out his family's entire savings. So, these are a man who was helping me with reintegrating alters, ended up poisoned at work and died on his way home. Someone else who had come to me for counseling was tossed off an interstate bridge in Portland, Oregon. So these are serious things that happen to people that are too close to me. So I don't let anybody get that close anymore.
Right. Understandably. Going back to the very beginning, your remember code. So is that a code somebody speaks out loud and when you hear it, it activates something within you? Is that how that works?
Yeah. When they create an altar, they will program it with a code to activate it. They will program it with a code to remember everything it's done so that it can report to its controllers. There's another code to make it go back to sleep. There's other codes to make it self-destruct. And the standard operating procedure was that they built a 13 by 13 by 13 cubic hierarchical array, just like you were dealing with a computer file. And each one of those would be an altar. Now, they didn't use all of them. I don't know how many they've used. I've reintegrated 32, and half of them have been just storing the original trauma that created them. So at this point, my sampling size says half of them were not used. But that's still an awful lot of people running around in my head.
Yeah,
with their own memories, their own training, their own ideas of what life is supposed to be like. And one of the ways you can tell who's real in this community, if they don't have altars, they're not real.
Right.
That's the truth. Now, I know a couple of people that are real that are hiding their altars. I've seen them shift. But if they're sitting there and they're themselves all the time, they're not real.
Now, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like how? Like you would physically see somebody shift, or how? Like how would you know that somebody has altars without being privy to that information?
You can watch them and you will see it's like they become another person. Same body, but sometimes they even look different. I had a bad time, not this past winter, but the winter before. And I was doing this weekly radio show. And it's on my YouTube. And you can go through some of those shows. I shifted altars as many as 22 times in a 2-hour show.
Wow.
And if you know what you're looking for, it's obvious to the entire world. It's not schizophrenia, it's dissociative identity disorder.
Okay.
And as far as I know, it's not really treatable by modern psychiatry. I've been using shamanic soul fragment retrieval followed by Jungian shadow work. That's what I've been using. My partner, the man I've lived with for almost 21 years, is an Iroquois shaman. And no, he's not public for people to hire him. He volunteered to help me. So I'm actually really grateful he's in my world.
So whenever
I just wanted to ask, would the shifting just be random, or is there something that would trigger you to shift specifically, or is it just random?
Sometimes it's random, but there are specific triggers.
Okay.
I've been able to figure out what some of them are, but for me, it's like I suddenly have missing time. And I have to stop and really think about what triggered. And I've been known to watch the show so I know what I said. Because from my point of view, I'm there for 15 minutes and then I'm gone the rest of the show.
Just blanked. Yeah.
Just blanked. So
I've heard of that happening.
It makes life really challenging.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like you're constantly being mind wiped.
Yeah.
Essentially. When somebody tells you your code out loud, is it instant, immediate activation, or does it is there an integration process? How does that work?
The remember code for that first altar, I felt different when I first heard it, but it was like the 8th time he used it that it finally took. So I think there's a repetition number that's necessary. I hate to say what the code is because it was probably used on other people as well. I mean, these people tend to be efficient. So I don't want to accidentally activate somebody that's out there and thinking they're normal.
Right. I totally get that.
This is a hell of a thing to dump in somebody's lap.
Yeah. So that movie American Ultra depicts this perfectly. If you've seen it,
Yes.
it's about a super soldier program, and the agent comes in while he's working at the hardware store and says his activation code, but she has to repeat it. And she's like, she's trying to get him a message, but she needs him to activate first. And it's really, but it didn't take on the first try. And that really resonated deeply with me when I saw that. I was like, this is a real thing. And I had
That's
never
a real thing.
Yeah.
That's a very real thing. And in my generation, because I'm 66, so this was in the late 50s, they were using, on my group of people, they were using things out of the Wizard of Oz books. Now they're coming up with these random generated code words because they're hoping you're not going to be accidentally activated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by hearing
something rarely spoken, so you're not, accidentally.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like some sort of I don't know.
Just what you need is a highly trained assassin to be accidentally activated and not know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very, very bad.
So.
Wow. Okay. So, you have memories, obviously, from a few different altars, I would assume, but what are your most prominent memories? The ones that you can conclusively say, I did this. I know I was part of this.
I know I was part of the Montauk Time Tunnel in 1961-62, that winter. I know I was sent to Mars in the Stargate that is on Long Island in New York. And I know I spent 25 years on Mars, and that the Germans I was turned over to put me in their school system. And that's where that event with the Raptors happened, was lunchtime. Lunchtime in German Schule. The Raptors came through the wall. I was part of the German war against the native Mars raptors and the native Mars ants. We called them bugs and lizzies, and both names are rather insulting. But I don't remember there being a sentient fly race there, but the CIA Archivist said it was part of my report. So, there are things I don't remember. I do very much remember being eaten by spiders on Mars, and those things were huge.
Yeah, we've heard that from a few different whistleblowers at this point, the spiders on Mars. Yeah.
Mars is smaller than Earth, so everything that's there gets a little bigger. That's the first thing you need to understand. Secondly, it gets outrageously cold at night. So most of what survived there are cold-blooded animals that just basically shut down. Warm-blooded animals, it's too cold for them and they freeze. So
unless they've moved underground, or
unless they've moved underground. There is a Mars native human, and there is a burrowing mammal that resembles a capybara with really short legs. Just those are the only mammals I remember. It doesn't mean there aren't more. These are just all I remember. Now, when I was on Mars, my duties were, I was on a plane that had a plasma engine, and I was in what we would call near Earth orbit. and using a scanner on the computer to see what was on the ground. And my basic duties would be to scan for Mars native raptor nests, their homes, and take them out if they were small, call in backup if they were larger groups, and to pick up human remains, because we had technology that could bring you back from the dead for up to 4 months. And our population was small compared to the population of the enemy. So we would go and scrape up everything and bring you back from the dead.
Like in a regen tank type of a thing?
Yeah, it was the Germans have the tanks. The Americans have the med beds.
Okay. So I never knew that difference. Okay.
They were sourced from different extraterrestrials. And when I use the term extraterrestrial or ET, I'm referring to, the definitions in the SSP. An extraterrestrial is a physical being in a meat suit. It appears through a physical technology, even if that technology is something like a Stargate. You can shoot it and it will die.
Right.
An interdimensional may be able to manifest a meat suit. And it comes with or without technology. But you try to kill it because it's not native here, you can't. That's a very important distinction to make. You know, whether or not you can kill a critter is really important to know.
So if they're multidimensional, they just have the ability to phase in essentially.
Yeah.
And then become physical, I guess, like a Sasquatch. I would imagine how a Sasquatch would do it, and then phase right back out.
Tyler, like that inner earth being that manifested in your house. You remember you said it was like halfway manifested, but it's like see-through, so it wasn't really physically here fully. Yeah,
100%.
Kind of like that.
We refer to those guys as interdimensionals, and it was actually illegal to interact with them for a long time until somebody in Congress figured out that God was one of them. And then they had to change the law real quick. So, yeah.
It's funny that they even have, like, the fact that they even made a law like that when we're supposed to believe ETs don't exist, and that's all nonsense.
Yeah, well,
they make a law that makes it illegal to interact with it. Like, come on, people, what does that tell you?
Right.
You know,
we were allowed to interact with ETs because they were physical beings and could be tracked through technology. We were not allowed to interact with interdimensionals because they could not be tracked by the technology.
Wow.
And they've been tracking everybody since the 50s.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm sure. Yeah.
The number of the population that's actually involved in these programs is probably alarming.
My best guesstimate is, because I know the treaty with the Germans is that the United States is required to turn 150,000 Americans over to them every year. These are individual, discrete, unique. They cannot be recycled. So 150,000 Americans from 1960 to now. That's a lot of people. And that's just the ones that have been turned over to the Germans. There are at least 6 other programs out there, 4 of which are run by Americans.
When you say programs, what are you referring to exactly?
I'm referring to completely separate functionals, militaries. Okay. The Germans out there call themselves Bund Freie Deutscher Welten, which translates into the Federation of Free German Worlds. There's over 1 trillion Germans living in the Draco Empire, in colonies. We're talking about a really large group there. Mm-hmm. So anybody that says they've killed off all the Germans, they're lying.
Right.
Okay. Next would be, there's a lot of names for them. Eisenhower called them the military-industrial complex. One of the first guys out there talking called them ICC, which he admitted was a made-up name. Ileana, the Star Traveler, who is a whistleblower for their program, called them planetary corporations. The new guys are calling them the Alliance.
Okay.
These are the next largest group, and they are basically American, but they're independent of the government. And there's a couple billion of them out there.
So it's been my understanding that the ICC was separate than the Alliance, according to some people, as far as ICC would be more of a cabal group and the Alliance is opposing them. Obviously, we just go by what these people are telling us. So what are your thoughts on that?
I served with the Germans and I served with Kruger. These are the ones that I have memories of. Kruger is a mercenary company that was run by one of the scientists that helped mind fracture us. And it's an American mercenary company. So those are the two I have served with. And Alliance is calling itself that because they're going through and capturing ships and forcibly converting their crews. What they're doing is they kill you. They remove all of your implants, insert their own, and then regenerate you. So you wake up, you're killed with, say, German programming, and you wake up with ICC programming. And they're calling that defections. They're calling that, well, you decided to join us. It doesn't sound voluntary to me.
No, not at all. I mean, who would sign up for that?
But because they're getting people from various groups, they changed their name to Alliance to make it sound like they're good guys. That's one of the things you have to really understand. Everybody out there thinks they are the good guys, that what they are trying to do is worth all of the atrocities they're committing.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point.
Is there any group that's...
Everybody out there is committing atrocities. Okay. Everybody.
Is there any group, let's say, because supposedly what we're told is the Alliance or the White Hats are fighting for humanity and to free us from the cabal enslavement and control that's been going on forever. But it sounds like what you're saying is they're not, they're just kind of out for themselves. So is there any group that's fighting for that, or are there other benevolent ETs here helping with that? Is there any help, or are we just all screwed essentially? Like what's really going on here?
What's really going on is Earth is a free will zone.
Mm-hmm.
That's an experiment. Not many places have free will. Most places in the galaxy are hive minds, and everybody goes with the program. Okay, we are a free will zone, and if we want to have things changed, we have to do it ourselves.
Right, which is a message that's coming across anyway. Like, it's going to take us,
Yeah.
Bring it into action here.
Yes, we have to take action to undo what the cabal is doing. Now, does that mean there aren't individuals out there that are capable of changing things? No. There are lots of individuals out there that are doing their bit, but are they organized, coordinated? No. Now,
Yeah.
don't blink on me right now. Okay.
So there's assistance, but they're not going to do everything.
Hang on, she's got it. Yeah.
One of the things people don't understand is how the actual structure here is built. Earth does not belong to us. That's the first thing people have to understand. Earth belongs to the Anunnaki.
Mm.
If you have been enslaved, it is by the Anunnaki. When they created humans, they made two versions of us, the workers and the overseers. What you see in the cabal are the overseers. And they're not a totally separate species. They're able to interbreed with us. So the middle classes are the hybrids between the two. And it's mostly the hybrids that are upset about being ruled. Now, the farther up the chain you get in humans, you reach a level where those humans are being telepathically controlled by Anunnaki.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, some of these people we know are being controlled. You can just see it.
And it's by Anunnaki. It's not by Draco.
So where do the Draco fit and the reptilians fit in this picture?
The solar system is in the middle of the Draco Empire.
Mm.
In the Draco Empire, the Draco really don't care what you do with your world as long as you pay them their taxes. And their taxes are a set percentage of your gross planetary product. Now remember, this is an Anunnaki world. And what was their gross planetary product?
DNA?
Us.
Right.
Us.
Well, that's where the whole, I guess, galactic slave trade comes in, and that's why they're kidnapping us and using us,
yes,
and bringing us into programs. And from day one, we've been inbred with this. We don't even know what it's like to be a human without any of this. You know,
we cannot even imagine what it's like to not be in a hierarchical system.
Mm-hmm.
We can't imagine what it's like to do our own thing without having somebody to answer to. We can't imagine life without somebody being our boss, because it's been inbred to us. And I've interacted with Anunnaki, and I'll tell you, it's inbred to us to kneel before them and basically open your mind and do whatever they tell you to do. That is the hardest thing I have to do, is when I interact with them, to not kneel, to not open my mind, to not instantly go into worship mode.
Now, when have you interacted with them in the programs?
They picked me up June 15th, 2018. They had a trial. They declared me to be an abomination. They put me into something they call the truth machine, and it's designed for interrogating extraterrestrials. And they would pull up each of my altars, download the memories of that altar, and then painfully destroy that altar. This was a painful process. They had done 2 of them when the German Armada showed up to rescue me. I have no idea why a lieutenant that was always in trouble was worth losing a ship in that battle. But they came and saved me. And it was at that point I stopped listening to the American propaganda of German Nazis in space. And I started searching my actual memories for what were these people really like. For me, it was, why the hell did they do this?
Of course.
And it took me a good 6 months to adjust my attitude. Now, you've still got people that served with Nacht Waffen that are out there saying they're evil Nazis, and some of them have been quite nasty to me since I adjusted my attitude. Some of them cannot even share a stage with me without being nasty. There's one young woman in particular that when she hears my name, she screams. So
that's called a trigger.
Yeah, that's called a trigger. So I don't consider them good guys, but I don't consider them bad guys.
Well, this thing is so massive. It only makes sense that we'll have more and more people coming forward with memories of experiences that weren't necessarily negative. I can't see. Yeah. I think this is a lot more. It's not just black and white, good and evil. No. You know, it is so in depth and so multi-layered that I feel like people are just going to have to start accepting that, you know, all of the above is possible here. This isn't just a bad guy versus good guy. You know, like the journey story.
From what they taught me in Shula. Now, think about this is what the other side took from everything that's happened the last 2,000 years. They said that they were not welcome here.
Who's they?
The Germans.
The Germans, okay. They
said the German people were not welcome on Earth, that they had been subject to genocide after genocide after genocide since the time of the Roman Empire. That every time they turned around, somebody was trying to kill them off. And so they finally got the technology to go into space and be free. That's why they call their colonies the Federation of Free German Worlds, is because they're finally free from the Jesuits, the Roman Empire, the bankers, all of the people who've been trying to kill them off for the last 2,000 years. And what happens? The Americans get the technology to follow them.
Right.
And they've got those same people chasing them again. And yeah, they're pissed. And you would be too if you thought you had finally made a place where you were safe.
Right. Well, it's just like in a movie, you know, when they capture the villain, they find out there's always somebody above them, you know?
Yeah.
So there's always, everybody has an enemy, even the enemy, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like
Americans are not used to seeing the Germans as having been attacked and attacked and attacked and attacked. And when I really understood that was their mindset, everything they did after that made sense to me.
Right. And I want to be clear too, that this doesn't excuse like the nasty things we've heard being done to
Nazi
people.
Stuff.
It doesn't excuse any of the things that they've done. It's just a matter of you have to put things in.
It didn't come out of nowhere. Yeah, there's a reason.
There's a reason for it. One of the things that I've really, when I first came public, I wanted justice. Okay, I had been kidnapped as a 4-year-old. I had been raped. I had been sodomized. I had been nailed inside walls and left to suffocate. I'd been locked inside a bank vault and left to suffocate. These were the things they did to mind fracture me. And I wanted justice. But the more I talk to other survivors, the more I find that most of the perps now started off as victims and were forced into being perps. And that makes justice a lot more complicated.
Right. That resonates. That resonates. You know, it's almost like it's the easiest way for you to live your life at that point without being tortured anymore. So you're gonna just become the torturer, unfortunately. But by that time, you've been so groomed, for lack of a better term. Any semblance of like human that was once there is gone. So that's why this is very complex.
They mind wipe us first. So you're left with, you don't know anything about your family. You have no moral compass. You know, you don't know anything. And
you're a blank slate.
You're like a slave, and they have replaced anything that's family. And it's Stockholm syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
You are completely dependent on them for your survival. So yeah, you do what they tell you to do. And the public isn't understanding whenever that they go, well, just kill all the perps. That's not justice. What do you do with someone who was picked up when they were 4 years old and tortured, and then Stockholm syndrome set in, and now they're remembering all this, and they're on Earth and they're going, oh my God, and dealing with the Omega programming, which they also install in us, which is self-destruct programming. That was one of the problems we had with the super soldiers a decade ago. Was they would start to remember, and then suddenly they would kill their family and themselves, and any counselors that would work with them, because they were programmed to not expose the programs.
Wow, I don't know if I was aware of that.
So this is a dangerous community. This is not someplace that you really want to pretend to be one of us.
Right.
And yet, the people I've been working with, they'll watch half a dozen videos, sometimes more, and then they'll start dreaming about it and think they're one of us. And I'm like, you have no idea how lucky you are that you're not.
Right. Right. It's like they want to be a part of a club or something, which is another form of programming. You know, we all want to fit into or whatever it is.
They think it's cool, and it's not. You have nightmares. You can't live a normal life. I can't even count on I'm going to be me all the way through an interview.
Right. Yeah, I definitely. There's some major healing that needs to occur for all these people. That's why Anne Marie Morales, we're going to have her on the show soon. She's been tapping into our conference and and the people who have been, all these people are amazingly gifted these days. You know, some of these people who are able to tap in and see, but she sees the amount of healing. She's like, you're bringing together a lot of traumatized people. We need to make sure that this event is protected, and the people involved in the audience, everybody is protected and cleared, and we do this right. We can't just go in haphazardly. And she's helping me understand like how serious this actually is. Also, you know, it starts off as it is. I know it's the one of my passions. Obviously, this entire subject, because you know, at first you hear about it and you wonder is this true? And then the more you get into this, you're like, oh wow, this is true. This is happening. And and then you look in the world and you just understand how fake and how much of an illusion everything actually is. That's why I like this.
I have trouble talking to normals.
Right, exactly. Like this whole, like, who knows what's going on with this Ukraine Russia thing, really, but definitely we're getting massive propaganda that's a divide and conquer tactic, and it's all the same playbook, over and over. Obviously, there's probably a real operation going on, but
The
you're
news
not
is showing
getting
fake shit over and over and over again.
right. But
People with cardboard guns.
exactly. And my point is that that's not even the real issues. That's not even what's really going on. Like there might
That's a distraction
right.
to cover up something else. I started off and I was in the Truther movement, have been since high school. And in my day, it was about the JFK assassinations. And then we threw in the stuff about why were we in Vietnam torturing those people. And over the years, there have been more things added to it. But once you get the skills to start digging through and finding the real truth, you get to a point where you can't talk to people who listen to the evening news.
100% agree with that.
You have no points in common anymore. Now, it's been a couple of years since Facebook deleted it, but when Wade Booth retired from doing Facebook pages, he left me with Truth Beckons. So I was the admin on Truth Beckons for probably 3 years, and it had 603,000 followers when Facebook deleted it. And it was designed to be a truther magazine for women. And that was the vision for it. It was a magazine for women that told the truth. And so that was the background I came out of, that the NSA activated my memories of space. And I've rebuilt Truth Beckons. Facebook is making sure I'm under 1,000 followers. But one of the things I found this past week, while Ukraine was being invaded, is that the Ghislaine Maxwell trial is being appealed on the basis of one of the jurors lied about their prior sexual abuse history.
Right. That's not going to get any media attention.
Yeah, well, it did in the Middle East. I heard about it through Al Jazeera. But that's one of the things they're hiding, is that she's going to get a retrial because of this juror.
Of course. And there's a bunch of stuff going on in Australia right now. Also, some massive flooding, historical flooding in Queensland area. That the videos are absolutely insane. They're having to evacuate. The gas stations are closed. If people can't get food. There's people obviously doing some digging, and it's very apparent that they're seeding the clouds, and this is all controlled, obviously, via HARP and whatever other means they have.
Well,
but
the weather's been controlled by the American Air Force since the turn of the century.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point, hurricanes being steered, whatever the case may be, but they keep...
Hurricanes do not make square corners out in the ocean.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so there's a lot going on besides...
Isn't there the USA trucker convoy?
Yes, I have friends who are part of that.
That just passed through St. Louis today, or one of them.
Yeah. So they're distracting from that as well.
Right.
Like it's all the look over here, don't look over there. That's what,
Well, the truckers were being too successful in Canada, and now the truckers in the United States are doing the same. I understand that they're also doing that in Australia and France.
Right. Yeah, there's big things happening. So obviously they want your attention and focus on, and then they want you to be worried that, oh, we could potentially be nuked now. They put the fear in there. So it's all whatever.
I know this is going to sound anti-patriotic, but I really think Putin has more sense than to do that.
Yeah, I 100%.
I mean,
yeah,
he's been in charge of his country a long time. He hasn't nuked us yet.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting though, because it does look like, there's all those biolabs in Ukraine. There's all these deep state. It's a deep state stronghold, massively, Ukraine. And it looks like Putin's going in and taking out all the other stuff in there. And that's why they're saying, oh my God, Russia's bad, they're evil, Putin's Hitler.
Well,
they're trying to make it look like, oh, poor Ukraine's getting attacked for no reason, Russia's evil, and it's actually the opposite. It's actually they're being taken out.
America did a coup in Ukraine a decade or so back, and they installed American corporations and neo-Nazis. Mm-hmm. And the American corporations did a lot of raping the locals, and it's become a hotbed of human trafficking of all kinds. And I really don't see what's going on as any of our business.
It's probably not, it's better that we don't let it distract us and consume us. And there's things.
I mean, I do feel for the real people who are going through hell with this.
Right. Just because.
But at the same time, it doesn't mean that the underlying cause is necessarily anything other than it appears to be. He said he was going in to protect Russian nationals who were living in the eastern third of the country from the neo-Nazi government. Mm. That's what Putin said. I mean, I think we should listen to what the man said.
Yeah, and not the media. Basically, whatever the media is telling you, it's pretty much always a lie, and it's
mainstream media. Mainstream media is a mouthpiece for the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, for those who don't know. And they have a mouthpiece, a news magazine called Foreign Policy. And if you really want to know what's going on from their point of view, subscribe.
Right.
Because I found knowing what they think they're doing to be most enlightening.
Well, I have a question about these wars we see. Okay, so obviously you get footage of conventional aircraft, missiles, and all that stuff. Obviously, we know the technology is far beyond that. Do you think there are? Do you think there are advanced vehicles, weaponry being used simultaneously? Is there a space battle version of this going on? I know you were. Were you not a pilot, a navigator at one point, and you were working with this technology? Am I correct?
I was a pilot / navigator in Nacht Waffen. We were not involved with Earth warfare. Nacht Waffen tells its people below captain that Earth was destroyed in a cobalt war and is uninhabitable for the next 10,000 years. Mm-hmm. That is their standard shtick. So when I was there, I had no idea Earth was still inhabited. So we were not part of this. My alter in Kruger is a ground thumper, and I work on a small team that James Rink is actually in charge of. And I got him in trouble because I blew up a cyborg factory on Mars. So
interesting.
Yeah. When you have alters, it's not always your cover alter that gets messed with. In that particular case, I woke up there, freaked out, And that altar did not have a firewall on psi abilities. And so when I panicked in that body, it sent out an EM pulse that blew up the power plant and destroyed the factory. And you know where they talk about that there's a volcano on Mars? That's where this plant used to be.
Wow. So as far as the technology that you were working with, I know this is pretty advanced stuff. We shared one of your clips from one of your interviews about the SpaceX launch or missile actually being an EM drive technology. Would you mind
that's
going
an EM
in?
drive.
Yeah.
We had several drives between all the ships I was in, because the Germans use their technology until it cannot be repaired. It takes so much in resources to build a ship that they use it until it can't be fixed. And if you happen to be out in space when it can't be fixed, they will come rescue you and tow it back. Okay, I've seen computers that still had drives attached to computers that are basically quantum. So they reuse everything. So we started off with the Ripacina, Schauberger's drive, and using the red mercury fuel that was developed by the Sonora Aero Club. So we started off with those when I was first there. And along the way, we got plasma drives. We got the EM drive, only we called it the copper microwave. There's another one that uses a huge quartz crystal coated with a bismuth alloy. And they use that, just basically plug it in. The hyperspace drive, I'm not sure how it functions. When I was the navigator, I had what Elon Musk is calling a Neuralink. And it was behind my left ear, plugged into my brain. The outside chip looked like Bluetooth, and it connected me to the quantum computer of the ship. And the computer was controlling all of the math and the how much fuel you put in and all that, where I controlled the destination, the path, which density we would travel through, and making sure when we came out that organics and inorganics were not intermingled. Now, that was the mistake they made with the Philadelphia experiment. The Philadelphia experiment had one of those engines.
Okay.
That's what they were testing. They didn't understand they had to have a navigator, because the computer cannot tell the difference between organic and inorganic. And so just basically blended everything. Most navigators are extraterrestrials. There's only like 5% of us at most that are human, or in my case, human hybrid.
And how is that determined? Testing, I'm sure.
Yeah, they test you.
Yeah.
They found out while I was at Montauk that I was capable of taking physical objects into other dimensions with me, because I was trying to run away and I was strapped into a physical chair, and I took the chair with me when I escaped.
Wow.
Nice.
I was 6. So that is a very, very, very rare ability in all of these programs. So if they don't have someone like me that can do it, they have either a Gray or a Draco. Now, those ETs on human ships are very, very lonely people because humans are racist as fuck.
That's one way of putting it. Yeah. And I don't mean to laugh at you, but I can see how that would be a struggle for them. Yeah.
I had issues because before I was born, I was modified with Alpha Drac DNA, and that's what gave me that ability. And I have had issues on ships with commanding officers treating me like I was dirt because I was a hybrid. And it wasn't even that my parents were, this was done to me as part of the program. They were looking for that ability. They were looking for telepathy. They were looking for any of the clairs. They were looking for navigation ability. That's what they were looking for. And they got the mother load with me. They did it just right. Now, there are other people that have come out with those abilities and are unable to function in 3D real Earth. And a lot of those people are in mental hospitals.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
At the time, I thought it was pretty harsh, but as an adult, I look back on it. My father had no abilities. And as a child, I would tell him what I was seeing. And if it wasn't 3D real, he would beat me for lying to it. So I learned to tell what Daddy could see.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's why I can tell you what's 3D real and what's not, is because Daddy beat me when I told him something that wasn't 3D real.
So
this is not, when I tell people this isn't a fun place to live, I'm not kidding. I'm not saying, you really don't want to be here. Now, if you were part of this world, some of us are really welcoming and will try to help you. Try to show you the ropes, help you get established so that you can find some kind of peace. But if you walk into a space, a navigator sees 3 dimensions overlapping, sometimes 4 or 5. So I walk into a space and I see all of the demons hanging on you. I see creatures that look like cartoon characters standing around pointing and laughing. And I see animal spirits hanging around. Some of them will completely close me off from certain individuals. So if I'm ignoring you, it's because those beings are in the way.
Now you're talking about this is an ability you had while you were the navigator.
This is the ability that I have had all of the life I remember.
Okay.
They mind wiped me when I was 4 when they picked me up. I have no memories before that. None. Right. I've seen photographs of myself. I know that I was part of this family. I know that my grandfather used to play with me a lot. I was his first grandchild. He was like in love. And I know that, my parents were who I was raised by afterwards. I know that my siblings are, but I don't remember anything before that first kidnapping.
Wow. So when you were on Mars and you went through their schooling program, how was that at all similar to what we would experience here on Earth?
They taught old school Prussian style. You had a slate and a chalk and an eraser cloth, and you spoke out loud. And if you said it wrong, the teacher would come slap you with a ruler, usually on the tips of your fingers. There were no electronics. There was not a lot of writing on paper because they didn't have the paper to waste. Mars doesn't have trees. We wore uniforms. We went to school for 5 hours a day. We got lunch, came back for another hour, and then we were sent into the colonies' gardens, and they were hydroponic gardens. They were not, you weren't digging in the dirt. You were still in your school uniform and you were working the garden, but it was higher level and
this was all underground?
It was all underground.
Now, are there domes, like clear domes as well?
There were not while I was there, but I left Mars in 1990.
Okay, so who knows by now? There was also a whistleblower, Carrie Cassidy, who came forward on Project Camelot years ago, who was unnamed, said he was working in a jump room under Texas, somewhere in Texas, that he would jump back and forth to Mars all the time. And he came forward and said that the version of Mars that all these SSP people are talking about is actually a fourth dimensional version of Mars, that if we were to travel there in a 3D conventional craft, let's just say, we wouldn't find anything that these experiencers are talking about because it's happening in the fourth dimension. Does that resonate, or is this guy just full shit?
I went there through a jump gate.
Right. So did he. That's how he was getting there, apparently.
I guess we'll find out when Elon Musk gets there.
Right. So you don't know either. Yeah.
That's one of those points where, you know, I was on Earth. I was in New York City. It was dark. I could see a bridge. It was 3 or 4 story building. You go in the front, you're wearing hospital PJs, you're with a group of kids, you get put in an elevator, you get told huddle in the middle because once you get started, the walls go oval and you come out the other end when you're there, and there's this big desk with a cranky old woman on the other side of it, and there's a big sign that says Willkommen ins Mars. So from that point on, you assume you're on Mars. Maybe not. I don't know.
Sure. That's interesting. That's good to bring up, because sometimes, like, if you're in nothing but an underground facility, you know, you're not, it's like us. We can't just leave Earth and look back and like, oh yeah, we're on Earth. Like, you just assume because that's what you're told, you know.
I would be in near Mars orbit in my ship.
Okay.
So I knew I was orbiting something that
right.
was a reddish color desert planet. There was air, but not a lot. The sky was a very light blue, like higher elevations. And
I'm not saying that you weren't on Mars. I'm just saying it's interesting point to bring up, because sometimes you could tunnel or jump somewhere and you might not even know. I think I forgot who described it like this, but you don't even know sometimes that you've even left planet Earth, and you can jump to a room or another underground base on another planet.
You're just in a base. How would you know?
Yeah. And apparently there's people who do this like daily, and they have no idea that they're going off planet working and coming home.
I've had to deal with Shane Bales, aka Shane the Ruiner, is a distant cousin of mine, and we've known each other since 2016. And I'm going to be on his podcast Friday.
Oh, cool.
So I've been like, how am I going to deal with this? Because he doesn't believe any of us ever went off Earth.
Oh, really?
His personal experience was that as a teen, young adult, that he was taken into a deep underground base. It was cabal rather than military. And that he supervised rooms full of children with virtual reality, with memories being downloaded into their minds. And truthfully, according to all the research, your brain cannot tell the difference between virtual reality and real events. So he has been telling me since we first met that my experiences were virtual reality and downloaded. And honestly, I have no way to prove him wrong.
Right. But I mean, so we have a lot of corroborating testimonies and specific details. I mean, which is possible they're putting all these children on the same program and in the same world interacting with each other.
I think that's happening. Yeah, that's probably happening too.
Yeah.
But
what would be the purpose for that unless they're just experimenting?
That is what I have always been curious about. Why would they go into another timeline? Why would they go into another dimension? Why would they waste the resources? Okay. The group of kids we started off with 1,000 kids. And by the time we got to Mars, there were 20 of us. And I was contacted a couple of years back by a Department of Defense agent who told me flat out I was the last survivor of the Langley class of 64. That's what they call it, was a class. And I'm like, that has got to be the most disgusting view for 5 years of torture that I've ever heard.
Wow. Yeah, a class. Interesting.
Yeah, of course.
There's too many programs that we know exist that are dealing with these technologies and these programs and Montauk and all this stuff. And there's too many physical locations on Earth all across the globe. There might be a virtual reality program going on in one of them, but there's way too much coming forward now and all across the globe, and people who have entirely different.
Everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere. To me, that virtual reality thing, that just feeling into it right off the bat, it feels like somebody trying to discredit this SSP.
PSYOP.
It's just like a PSYOP, trying to discredit it so it doesn't get exposed. If you can get people to believe that it's all virtual reality, that makes literally everyone look like a lunatic, and then it just muddies the water even further. So
it's similar to the flat Earth and space is fake. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. I have spoken at 5 conferences now, and at every single one of them so far, knock on wood, I'm hoping this changes. The main speaker, the only one of us who got paid, was a CIA agent. Every single time. And every time they have admitted to it on stage. I'm not making this up. It came out of their own mouths. And every one of them has tried to turn it religious instead of 3D.
Well, that's very interesting, because they do that because if they can't be held accountable if it's not 3D.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's 3D. There are charges pending. If it's suddenly considered to be astral, you can't put them in jail for that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure there is an astral jail.
Manipulating your beliefs is what that's what they are. That's what they've been doing for a long time, is like they try to manipulate what you believe to be true. Because if they can control that, then they can do whatever they want, and get away with it. And that's what the media, it's like, that's the media's job, is to manipulate what you believe to be true and keep you so programmed that you never even think the thought of like, maybe I'm being programmed, maybe I'm being, manipulated for an agenda.
Well, that's one of the things that I have to constantly think about is this a real memory?
Mm-hmm.
Is this programming? Because I was subjected to some really heavy programming.
Yeah.
When I have a new memory come up, I go into self-hypnosis and I say, okay, subconscious, open the curtains and show me what really happened. And it's often very, very different from what I initially remembered. But I have to do this every single time.
Well, there could be, because we know about screen memories, and who's this? I think I've heard you say in an interview before, like, who's to say that there's not a second layer of screen memory?
Yeah.
So really getting to the bottom of this stuff and what actually happened. First of all, if there's screen memories, something happened because they put the screen memory there in the first place. So it's not like you're just crazy. It's just a matter of getting to the bottom of that. And how many people are going to get to that point? How many people are going to keep digging after they get to the original screen memory and they believe that happened to them?
They just stop at the screen memory, and that's what happened.
Oh, those are the people who think ET productions are wonderful.
Right. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't argue with them. I just say, have you thought about, doing some hypnosis and opening the curtains and make sure that was what really happened?
A little further. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Check a little deeper.
Right.
Your subconscious has the memory of everything all of your alters have done.
Right.
It is the witness to everything that you do. And that's the one thing they have not been able to delete yet.
Yeah. I mean, I also don't discount the fact that there have been some sort of benevolent experiences that people have had. Just not everything,
I don't trust anybody out there. I consider them to be used car salesmen. They all have their own agenda, what they're trying to accomplish, and they think of us as monkeys.
Right.
Okay, I heard from an Anunnaki. What do you do if you have a ranch that you haven't visited for a while? And in the back forest, you've got these monkeys. And you come back from a trip and you find out that those monkeys have built houses and have started farming. What did you do about that? That's how they view Earth. The monkeys started farming and building houses, and now building cars. And
that's interesting.
That's how they're looking at us, as the monkeys are building houses and farming.
Right. I mean, there's got to be races out there that are rooting for us. So I don't think everyone's. It just wouldn't even make sense logically that there's no, like, everyone is against us. I feel like
there is a galactic government. I've heard them called various things by various people. When they choose to talk to me, the word that comes up is galactic authority. And they have a 3-branch government. They have like a council, and then they have regional courts. And the regional court in the solar system is called the Council of 5. And then they have a military police. And we're not talking about sweet, wonderful Andy Griffiths. We're talking about Stasi, Gestapo. Those folks are called guardians. Now, I've heard some people in the community making all kinds of things about the guardians. I've had contact with the guardians for about 15 years now. They tell me that they are protecting Earth because those monkeys started building houses and farming, that we are a child race, that they see great potential from us in the future if we don't kill each other off.
And nuke the whole planet, which is probably why they're stopping. Clearly there's UFOs shutting down, nukes facilities, and they're stopping that from happening.
So they're stopping the worst. They're taking away the nastiest toys. Mm-hmm. That's the way they put it to me. So they're stopping the nukes. Okay. They are protecting us from other ETs who think that we are not good stewards of this planet.
Okay.
And they are giving us time to develop.
Yeah.
But if we ask to be taken out of that status, we're going to be fair game for any Tom, Dick, or Harry that wants to come through and take over the place. And to be honest, we're not wise enough to make those choices.
I would agree with that. I mean, if suddenly overnight, if suddenly overnight everyone had the free will to make that decision without any control, without any suppression, because of this suppression and the programming, nobody even knows who they are. People literally have no idea who they are. So to be able to make a decision, like we don't have the knowledge, the awareness, anything to be making a decision like that.
Your average Joe Blow on the street doesn't even know who the players are.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't even know that there's players.
Yeah.
Most people live in a very unconscious state, is the way I like to put it. That
I'm not putting them down. I mean, this is the way this is the way we have been raised to think.
Mm-hmm.
That we are the pinnacle of creation, that there is nothing above us except God and maybe angels and a few demons running around.
We've been very programmed, in that way.
And every religion has its own variation of God, angels, and demons. So, it is what it is. We are not at a stage of development to make an informed decision. And I really think we should agree to stay under protection until at least your average Joe Blow knows who the players are.
Right. That's what's interesting. The show, The Orville, it's kind of like a spin-off.
I haven't seen that.
It's like
Star Trek parody.
It's like a Star Trek parody, but towards the end of the second season, it started getting like a lot more serious and a lot more disclosure. And they went to another planet, and they had religion still, and all of them on the craft were like, what's that? Why are they doing that? And like, who are they worshiping? And the one girl on the ship is like, oh, that's just something that all early stages of evolution. It's a program. All early stages of evolution are given because it's necessary for what I forgot. They explained it all, and it's like eventually they'll evolve past that. And
it's necessary to impose moral standards.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's for, because there are still a lot of folks here who are only being moral because they fear God.
So it's a fear-based control system, but it's kind of like a necessary one while you're at a primitive stage of evolution.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly how they
And
describe it. Better than I.
The Germans out there consider religion to be the cause of all warfare on earth.
Well, if you think about religion, it would make sense that each race, each ethnicity is a different experiment from a different group.
Yeah.
And then they don't want religion. They don't want you to marry outside of your religion, so you don't contaminate the experiment. This was the early days. Obviously, right now we're just kind of going in all directions, but
And then you have the cabal that is like a cult with their own hidden religion that they're the ones in all these positions of power with their Luciferian cults, like all this, what we consider evil, but it's all hidden because they know it's so far outside of most people's like a bit willingness to accept. And it's, they're like using us obviously for all these negative things and to feed off of. So like they're a religion in and of themselves too. And it's interesting how, but that's all being exposed now. So it's like, there's this interesting thing going on.
It's pretty hard to not believe in a God when that God gets into your head and tells you what to do and is loud enough you can't think over it.
Right.
That's their daily reality.
Were you talking about you talking about like the cabal? Like
I'm talking about the upper levels of the cabal.
So they're actually like
they're being controlled too. Yeah.
They're being controlled directly.
Yeah.
Hands-on daily. And if they don't sacrifice the right amount of stuff, their God will physically appear in their house and take what they want. Pretty hard to not worship that being.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. They're not the top of the pyramid here. Is what a lot of people need to understand.
They're not the top of the food chain. No.
They're being used too. Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So that's one of the biggest things that I've been trying to say is the guys that most people are blaming are not the top of the food chain.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Definitely not.
Like you want to see somebody arrested who was just kind of born into it and groomed into somebody they had no idea of what it's like to even be a human, really, and then obviously, they're programmed now and they're doing horrible things, but that's not the person that needs to be held accountable.
It's the person in their head, controlling hands-on that needs to be held accountable. Which
we have a long way to go to get to that that level of understanding for the population, for the masses,
Yeah.
But we're going to get to some sort of a tipping point, I'm sure, and we'll see a shift. But and that's what we're doing. Exactly this. I was talking to you before the show, and you're like, really, like, what? The only reason I'm doing this is to expose and stop this trafficking and abduction that our tax dollars are paying for, and all these agencies are involved in that run the world.
You take a look at the kids they're taking for the programs. And then you take a look at the kids that are being taken for adrenochrome. You're taking a look at the kids that are being taken for the sex trade. You're taking a look at the kids and young adults who are being taken for organ trade. And then you're taking a look at everybody else who is taken to be turned into a cyborg and sold off world. You are talking millions of people every year worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And the brunt of that is in these countries where they're having these constant petty wars. They generate thousands, millions of refugees every year. And the refugees and the homeless are the first ones to disappear. And nobody cares what happens to them.
Because that's why, exactly.
And I have found with my work, because I've been public since September 2016, unless it's their kids, most people don't care.
100%. It doesn't get real till it happens to you type of situation.
Yeah. And most people are anything outside of their own little personal bubble, they don't really acknowledge or care too much about.
Right.
If it doesn't affect them, they don't care.
And it's happening on such a grand scheme right now. It's not like we can just like lace our boots and run over there and like fight these guys. The first step is bringing awareness and getting enough people aware to where it you realize that, hey, could happen to my kid next.
I have asked people to contact their Congress critters, both the members of Congress and the senators, and ask them to investigate the CIA for human trafficking. Don't mention space. Okay, when MK Ultra was officially shut down. Now, we all know it wasn't. We all know it just went underground. Okay, but when it was officially shut down, when Congress ordered them to stop it, it was because enough people nagged the Senate to do an investigation. Now, if you want to look it up, it was 1975, and it was named for Senator Church. And so it was called the Church Commission on the CIA MK Ultra program. I'm asking for a similar investigation into CIA human trafficking. All of it. It's all part of a continuum. And that is what is actually funding the CIA at this point. There are 4 big things that are the biggest things on this planet. You've got drugs, human trafficking, weapons, and gold.
Right.
Those are the things that are going down. Now, there are other resources that are big deals now that haven't been in the past, but those are the big 4.
Yeah. And so DNA, I guess the trafficking, I feel like DNA is a big one too.
Well, DNA is a big one with ETs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if they have a mated pair, they're happy.
So
I have heard that our body type is considered to be one of the most adaptable that's out there, and that they're really curious about us for that reason. So
I've heard that as well.
Yeah, actually, it seems to be. I mean, it's true. We're literally, like we've said this before, we're living on an entirely poisoned planet.
Yeah, I've heard they're amazed that we're able to survive on our planet.
Well, we breathe oxygen. Do you know how explosive oxygen is?
Yeah.
We live in a nitrogen-based atmosphere. Do you know how reactive nitrogen is? It's poisonous to most of them. Our air is poisonous to most oxygen breathers, much less everybody else.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like even for us, it's poison. Yeah.
We're breathing nitrogen and we drink water. Water's a solvent.
It's take the natural elements out of it. The fact that they're being poisoned on top of that, fluoridated, and the chemtrails,
fluoride, chlorine,
right, and then the GMOs,
all the EMF radiation, GMOs, just go down the vaccines, go down the list. Just some.
In Shula on Mars, they said that when a population reaches a certain density, and that's based on number of individuals per area on the planet, okay? That when the population reaches a certain density, that all of the individuals will become telepathic. They had estimated it at 9.5 billion people for Earth. Now, remember, they thought Earth was dead, but that was one of the exercises they gave us, was at what point would humans on Earth become telepathic? And it was a population of 9.5 billion. Well, what happens when the population becomes telepathic? The cabal loses their ability to lie to everybody.
You can't hide anything anymore.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that is why they're poisoning everything.
Right. I mean, most people
they can't let us get there.
They can't control us anymore, so they're trying to burn it down. Yep.
Well, think about if
sense.
everyone had telepathy. I mean, think about the massive amount of people that lie on a daily basis about everything. You know, it does that. Works. You know what I mean?
Most of us who were SSP are at least mildly telepathic, and I spend a tremendous amount of energy staying out of people's heads.
Mm-hmm.
They think about, I got to go to the bathroom. Damn, I'd hit that.
Yeah.
I'm cold. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. That's what they think about.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Where's that damn cat?
Right.
Or a lot of thoughts that would make people upset that we don't even think about, because telepathy is not even something that most people are have any conscious awareness of being a possibility even. So we're so used to just our thoughts being only in our heads. So we think about things that we don't even think how would this person react if I'm thinking this? It's not even
right.
That's something we'd have to completely, get used to and just
normals
transform everything.
The presumption of privacy in their own heads.
Yeah.
And that's why I spend a lot of energy staying out.
Right.
It's none of my business, and most of it's stuff I don't want to hear anyway.
Well, that's what I was getting at. Imagine
emotions.
We're not
feeling
even
other people's emotions on top of that. That's how crazy.
We're not spiritually mature enough to really be a telepathic society and have it function properly without everyone, wanting to run and hide. Because you're right. Once that happens, there's no privacy. You can't walk into a room and think, "Oh, look at this guy." Something, whatever you're thinking about him, he's going to pick up on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so
we have to be eased into it in some way,
right?
You're going to be having your conference. You need to know that most of your speakers are going to be telepathic.
Right.
Yeah,
you need to know that a lot of your audience are going to be telepathic. You're going to be walking into a minefield.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And your friend that wants to do healing, she's going to have to take into account free will. Some of these people don't want to be fixed.
Right. Well, it's more about keeping it just protected, I would guess,
Yeah.
And you're not just going to force someone to heal. We know that, but it's about just keeping
you can't violate people's free will.
One last subject I want to cover before we wrap this up is clones. So obviously, with alters, there's clones, but I feel like that's
not always.
Not always, but clones is a reality that I think that people are going to eventually have to accept. And this goes back way further than I think people are willing to admit. Also, I've heard you say, and I've read in a book before, that World War I and II armies were, potentially clone armies. And that means that they've been doing this for a long time, and they've had this technology for a long time. And it just makes me wonder, how early do you think this actually started?
I think there have been clones for a long, long, long time. But I don't think humans were creating clones until the World War I era.
Okay.
By World War II, which was approximately 20 years later, Hitler had an entire battalion of clones, which tells me that they were growing these guys at the end of World War One. And I know they didn't have them in the American Civil War. A lot of the technologies that were used in World War One were developed in the Civil War era because the United States, the Russian Empire, and the Prussians had an alliance, and the OSS grew out of that. And these guys were doing a lot of tinkering, looking at how things operated. They had a hubris that was unbelievable. They thought they could conquer the world, that they knew how to run everything, and that anything that humanity did was automatically good. Now, somewhere along the way, we changed sides. And I have tracked it to the Teddy Roosevelt administration. I have not found the paperwork to document it. But it was under Teddy Roosevelt that we switched from being allied with Russia and Prussia and started being allied with Great Britain and France. Great Britain had been our enemy from the Revolutionary War up until Teddy Roosevelt. And what made me curious was World War II, World War I. Why were we backing the Brits? Because up until then, they'd been our enemy. And
what made us switch the Allies, exactly.
Yeah, that was a switch. Now, Teddy Roosevelt was from a Southern Confederate family, and he had been sent to be raised with relatives in Britain. And I know it happened during his administration. So I haven't seen the documents, but since then, they keep referring to our special relationship. And I really think truthers everywhere need to look into that.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, one step at a time, it's taken, right?
That's one of those things. I really think that switch is going to matter.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that is really going to matter. Something important happened. That was also the time frame that they talk about that the Constitution was taken out of effect and that the United States became a corporation instead of a country.
1871, Act of 1871.
Yeah, that there was in that time frame that 20 years later, I guess it would be 40 years later, the Federal Reserve came in, which was also from a British corporation. The Crown Corporation owns most of the Federal Reserve. And I really, really, really think this matters.
Yeah, I agree 100%. If you really go back to that, whenever the Act of 1871 happened, if that's true and that really happened, we've never, since we've been alive in our lifetimes, we've never been operating under the Constitution as we know it. Right. They probably do things in a manner to where it seems like they're abiding by it to somebody who's
they try to keep the facade of that, but yeah, it's clear.
They can't just blow their cover. And 1871 is also the same year that Ulysses S. Grant signed the executive order for the KKK. Like it was an assigned executive order by our president. And it was only days apart from the signing of the Act of 1871. Which is also it's just an interesting fact. It's peculiar to me.
Yeah, I don't believe in coincidence. I believe that they were all coming together. I personally consider Grant to be one of the worst presidents we ever had.
And we have Grant's farm right here down the street from us in St. Louis. His house, and there's a whole farm that people, kids go every day for field trips and all that stuff.
He was a great general, but he was a terrible president.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. So how many people do you think are clones right now walking around in public? Not in public, within our government, within politics, actors, celebrities, musicians?
I don't think there are as many in positions of power as a lot of people are trying to say. It would be too obvious. I think the current Biden is probably a clone.
Yeah, I would.
That's everything we've gotten. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's almost, if you're paying attention,
it's
physical appearances alone,
Well, there's also people with like a mask on, and they've used CGI. Clearly, they've done all these other things. Clearly not actually Biden there,
Biden thought he was running against some guy named Biden for president.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, seriously.
He told himself to go F himself on national television.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So we're looking at someone who was clearly in dementia and unable to hold a rational thought. And now you've got someone who can at least listen to the thing in his ear.
Yeah, all of a sudden overnight, like he can formulate a sentence. Yeah,
formulate a sentence, carry a thought for a couple of seconds. We've had some real winners over the last, this whole century. Most of them have been unable to carry a thought. Most of them have been listening to the plug in their ear or reading the teleprompter.
I was reading that like prior to Kennedy, that was the era where all these 3-letter agencies were developing anyway. But prior to Kennedy, presidents were for the most part in the know. And then once Kennedy caught wind of what was going on, he wanted to take all these 3-letter agencies and put them under one roof, and that wasn't going to fly. And obviously he had plans to expose some of the ET agenda and stuff. And then from president,
wanted to take our money back from the Federal Reserve, and all these things they did not like.
And then
JFK had an agenda that would have put us back into the constitutional republic.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it
he was killed by an assortment of folks who were all invested in different things that were wrong.
Right.
Yep.
And it was from then on when they realized that presidents weren't going to be, they weren't going to read in the presidents anymore,
Well, actually, it goes before Kennedy, because remember Eisenhower tried.
His assassination was a coup d'etat.
Oh yeah.
The people have not been in charge since.
Right.
And that's something that most people are clueless about, but that's why the JFK assassination really mattered, because they tried to take out Reagan too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Didn't they miss? Or what happened?
No, they hit him, but
they hit him, but
lived.
they also,
and he had dementia afterwards. So his vice president and his wife were together running the country because he was a mental case.
Right. That's right.
When he was pulled into, nobody understood how bad it was until he was pulled into court about Iran-Contra.
Right. I mean, it was pretty much a playbook, a predictable playbook from Kennedy on, as far as elections being rigged. It was all planned out. Trump came in as this wild card, and that kind of flipped everything upside down. And there's all kinds of theories on who he really is and who he's not. But
and before Trump,
he definitely didn't fit their narrative. We know that.
Hillary
Nobody
was
gets
supposed to.
elected without being planned. Nobody has been elected without being planned since at least Franklin Roosevelt. And he said so at the time. Nothing happens unless it's planned. And that was World War II.
Mhm.
Think about it, guys.
Yeah.
There have been clues all along that things are not as they appear.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing is
That's
as
the most
it
obvious
appears.
thing.
Not things.
Yeah.
Everything is not as it appears.
Everything.
Yeah. I came of age during the Nixon administration. And what he did was he completely pulled us off of any metal-based money.
Yeah.
And that was because it was due to pay the Federal Reserve. Every 20 years, they are to be paid off in gold at the rate of $30 per ounce. That has bankrupted us, and it is bankrupting the world, and it is the underlying slavery of the United States. And through it, we have enslaved the rest of the world through something called the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. And if you really want to look into it, there is a series of videos called What I Am Afraid to Block About. And it's about the EMF. No, got the wrong letters there. It's about the Stabilization Fund. And it's a slush fund completely under the control of the elected president. And it's run through the Treasury Department. And you really need to take a look into that because that stuff's important.
I mean, always follow the money. I mean, that's really where
Always.
that's where this takes you. I mean, that's
Yep.
and that's gonna.
That's one of the reasons why I don't believe that the secret space programs are in another dimension or another timeline. Why would they waste money
Right.
if it wasn't here?
Right. Just like that guy who said everything on Mars was in the fourth dimension, maybe that's a psyop also, maybe, he was told to say that, whatever, or that's what he actually believes. But
just because somebody believes it doesn't make it 3D real.
Exactly. 100%. I mean, that's literally what our show has turned into, just take nothing at face value. And we're just trying to stay as neutral as possible because there's so many contradicting and conflicting narratives right now. And no one really knows what the hell's going on. We're just trying to put pieces as a puzzle together, but we do have one common goal, and that's exposing all the trafficking and all that stuff. And
all the trafficking and all of the nonsense. There are so many. I would have more numbers for how many are being trafficked than I would for how many clones there are. And part of that is because the clone factories are supplying the cyborg factories.
Okay.
All they need is a piece of brain about that big that contains your pineal. That's all they need for a cyborg. And it only requires animal level awareness. And a clone has animal level awareness, even if it's not developed. And they rush them so fast. People tell me they're soulless clones. Well, that's bullshit. They are your identical twin. And if they are allowed to develop like a normal baby, they will have a mind, a will, and a soul of their own.
Well, yeah. So I think a soulless clone is a misunderstanding for like a soulless vessel that might have been grown, genetically farmed, in a
Well, this is a religious concept that allows people to torture these beings without guilt.
Right.
That
Yeah.
makes
The truth of the matter is they're your identical twin, and when they install us into them, we are literally possessing our sibling. And that's why the groups that use cloned bodies do 20 and backs, is because when that clone's mind reaches 20 to 25 years old, it gets strong enough to push the squatter out. So they lose their asset.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was wondering why why they chose 20 years.
It's because at that point, the mind of the body is strong enough to push the squatter out. Now, the Germans don't use that tech. The Germans take you in your real body and they regenerate you every week so you have a strong liver. They keep you at the age and size they want you at. And they can keep you as long as you're not going crazy. Now, some people that's 20 years, some people it's 40 years. They usually take me for 55 to 60 years.
Wow.
So, but it's the same concept is you're going back to your point of origin eventually at the end of it. Right.
At the end of my tour, they put me in that same regen tank and they set it for the age they took me. And now that they're taking me as an older adult, they have a photograph of the shape I'm in. And they put me back to how they found me, disabled and all. Except once in a while, if the tech likes me, he'll fix something little.
That's super interesting because Dan Willis talked about the medbed technology he worked on in the 80s, that it was a quantum camera that took a photograph of basically your current state. And they would basically if they were able to take a picture of you, go back and take a picture of you when you're the most healthy, then they can overlay that on you. And then that's how you basically bring you back to that state. So it has
before he talked about that, Alex Collier talked about that as an Andromedan technology. And then Dan heard Alex say that and he said, oh, that's interesting because I worked on a more primitive version of that same.
But you're talking about the use of a photograph, Penny.
And then you're talking about that too.
I'm talking about the use of a digital photograph, not a picture, but a data photograph.
Right. That's what I mean, though. It's some sort of quantum, Dan called it a quantum camera, basically.
Kind of like a holographic.
What we have with the Germans came from the mantids, and they are an insectoid empire that is basically next door to the Draco. And they saw these German people trying to escape Earth in Hanabu ships. They gave off so much radiation that the crews were dying. And they said, okay, these people are motivated. I mean, seriously motivated. So they felt sorry for them and had compassion and gave them the technology. So this is something you are dipped in, and it has a computer similar to a tablet on the side. It has a slot that you put a blood sample in. The blood sample has your DNA. So it matches what your holographic DNA would do to what your body becomes. And all you have to have is a tissue sample the size of your little finger, and you can bring that person back from the dead.
Wow. Yeah, that's something that absolutely intrigues me. And I'm sure literally everyone listening wishes they could sit in a med bed or a regen tank, it's tough living in pain. But Penny,
Tell me about it. My recent surgery was because my neck was broken in 1977. I've lived with that for 44 years and finally got it fixed.
Wow. Well, yeah, wow. I'm glad that you made a speedy recovery and you're back doing interviews now. And thanks for joining us. We've been going for a little over 2 hours now, so we're going to start wrapping this up. But thank you so much. This was incredible. We were all over the place, but it was absolutely intriguing and very important information, in my opinion. Any last words, Penny?
If you think that you've been part of this, be gentle with yourself.
That's
if
great.
You think, if you think your family has been part of this, be gentle with them, especially if they don't want to accept it was real.
Right. That's great advice. Yeah. Don't push it on anybody, or yourself even. Sometimes it's just best to let it organically flow how it's supposed to. Don't go pushing any buttons. But yeah, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Can you, do you have anything upcoming that you want to share?
Okay. I have a website, Space Portals with an S on the end of it, .net. I have a radio show, Nacht Waffen Pilot with Penny Bradley. It's on gurn-radio.com on Saturdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Pacific. I put the archive on my YouTube, and I haven't been doing counseling for 2 years. So I can refer you to others if you need help.
Right. And we'll have all those links in the description as usual. And guys, come hang out with us at the conference. We're really looking forward to seeing everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to email us and we'll be happy to answer those. If you're looking to try a new CBD, Hopewell Farm CBD, you get 10% off with promo code Journey to Truth 10. It's really incredible stuff. If you're looking for a new one to try, I highly recommend it. The Omnia Radiation Balancer is a patch that you see here. Put on any radiating device. You can't see it here, but anyway, put it on any radiating device, Wi-Fi router, modem, phone, computer. It harmonizes the frequency coming in and balances it so it's less harmful for us. And they're great products. I highly recommend them. They have pendants out now, guys. Go check out the website. They have this technology pendants that you can wear around your neck. And hopefully we'll have some of those products with us at the conference so you guys can check them out in person. And if you want 20% off all of our Teespring merch, you can get that with promo code 20 and back. And all those links are below in the description. We love you all. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for your support, your donations. Some of the beautiful comments we've been getting lately are truly beautiful, and that's what keeps us going. And we can't thank you guys enough. We can't do it without you. That being said, good night, and we will see you next time. Thanks, Penny.
Thanks, Penny.
He said, listen, give me 2 years. You'll never want to come back. You'll have the adventure of a lifetime, and nobody will know you're gone.
You get deployed at 17 and a half. And now I was deployed from the New York Athletic Club. And we got actually deployed right out of the locker room from, you get beamed up to the ship and then the ship takes off and you're gone for 20 years.
It's a very hard pill to swallow, but that's exactly how I experienced it. I was taken at 10 years old. I was taken and I was worked through several black programs. I was privately owned in the beginning. I did six or 7 years on Earth.
That's when all the stuff for the programs began for me. Specifically, the tracking that they had been doing since I was a kid, it followed me all the way through the military. And at that point, when I got to Diego Garcia, that's where I was taken off planet.
It opened that floodgate for me. And then all of these recalls started coming in and I was just like, oh my gosh. And the way I was describing it, she's like, I've never had this with a client, but you're describing a parallel life right now.
It's a combination of human and other species. I was able to remember the name on their uniform. It's USS Arcorp. That was putting me through some kind of recruitment tests from age 3 until 12. And 12 is when I was potentially, taken.
He said, with your scores, I guarantee you'll make commander and you'll make pilot. And I said, pilot of what? And he said, 4-kilometer-long Starship. He told me what was going to happen. He says, you volunteer for the program, we'll put you in, you'll do 20 years, we'll send you back in time 20 years, age regress you 20 years, wipe your memory, and you'll just wake up in bed like nothing happened.
It's almost beyond words, it's beyond comprehension of how this could happen. Whoever's masterminding this, the Air Force, working with extraterrestrials, working with a lot of pretty wild technology, which I'll also get into, it's really beyond fathomable. It's beyond fathomable.